Welcome in to House of Horns. My name is Victor Corona, aka Victor Producer, and as always, I'm joined by Gilbert Manzano, who does it for Sports Illustrated MMQB. Gilbert, it is Monday Night Football for the Rams and Dolphins in Week 10. How, as a when you were a B reporter, how much different is it having to wait around till Monday to get to this game, and kind of what's the process for you?
It's a little weird because, well, the crappy part is you have to work on Saturday, and usually Saturday is like the one day off you sometimes get as a beat reporter. Not really, because a lot of, I guess, injury reports, who's going to be active, who gets moved up to the roster happens on Saturday. So, but it's still like, okay, just check for that for 30 minutes, and then you go about your one day off, sort of. But then on Monday Night Football, there's Saturday practice. You have to go to the facility, talk to the coach for the final media session before Monday Night Football game. So from that point, it kind of sucks there. But for the players, you get an extra day to recover. I know that does matter. Especially at this point in the season, you want to have an extra day off. You're already in week 10. uh, you know, One thing that I've been noticing, and I know this is a different game, but look at the Thursday night football games. The last 2 weeks, the home team has won because teams are getting tired. Having a short week like that. The Texans lost to the Jets. The Vikings lost to the Rams and LA. So having extra rest can only benefit you, and also having the extra rest to be at home maybe could be a good thing. But then again, if you're the Miami Dolphins going from the East Coast to the West Coast, that extra day does really help out.
Yeah, and that I think that's a huge thing too, Gilbert, as you mentioned. But yeah, we have that kind of gets us into why we're here. We're here to preview the Dolphins and Rams matchup on Monday Night Football. We have a lot to get into. We'll get to our usual stuff, latest news and notes, plus storylines for both teams. And then of course our game predictions to end the show. But Gilbert, before we get to all that, do you have an engagement question for our viewers and listeners?
Yeah, let us know what the keys are to defeating the Miami Dolphins. It's a unique game. Like, I've been bashing the Dolphins all year long, but they are better than what their record says. They don't seem like a two-win team. Yeah, they got a bunch of injuries with Tua. Yeah, I'm not high on the coach, and yeah, I don't like this. One style of football to win games or just go down the field. But to Mike McDaniel's credit, he's been running the football a little more here because he had to when Tua went down. But yeah, they could be a dangerous team. They could also be a little bit of a trap game for the Rams here, who have won 3 consecutive games, and they spent a lot of energy in Seattle winning that game in overtime. But again, they have that extra day. So let us know what the keys are to this game here, because I don't think it's going to be easy. And I was surprised, Victor, because maybe like an hour ago, I checked the odds here, and it was like minus 2.5 Rams, and that was pretty much a pick'em game. So people are taking advantage and taking points at the Dolphins because they have some respect here. They put it close
Mhm.
against the Buffalo Bills. So let us know how you're feeling about this when if you're concerned. Do you see an area of weakness for Miami that LA could maybe expose on Monday Night Football? Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm also interested, Gilbert, as to what the crowd's gonna look like. It's a Monday night game. I wonder, if Dolphin fans, travel like we've seen with other teams that have come into SoFi. So that'll be something I'll be looking at as well, just in terms of whether it's more Rams and how much more it is, or if it's like a 50-50 with Dolphins and Ram fans at SoFi on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, but I feel like with Miami, it's kind of like LA. You don't leave Miami, so
Yeah, that's
I don't know how many transplants they are from Miami. There's a good amount, but it's not like
yeah.
Minnesota or even like a team that's no knock on the Dolphins fan base, but it's not a national team like the Packers or the Steelers or other teams like that.
Yeah, like any team from a cold weather city that wants to spend the weekend in LA, and I mean you have a long weekend too because I believe it's Veterans Day, so that's
Oh
another
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Yes, so something to kind of keep in mind. All right, Gilbert, let's get to the Rams Dolphins news and notes. We don't have an injury report because we're recording here on a Wednesday, but I do have some notes, I should say, some news. So the Rams activated offensive lineman Joe Noteboom. It's a big thing and the reason I'm bringing it up, Gilbert, because Rob Havenstein will not be playing in this game. Sean McVay talked about it on Monday during his Zoom call with reporters that it's not as bad as they thought it was, but they just want to make sure they give him enough rest. And part of the reason why they're wanting to give him some extra rest is now you get Joe Noteboom back, and also there's a chance that you get Jonah Jackson. Sean McVay said for sure they're gonna get Jonah Jackson back for the Dolphins game, and
Mm.
then it's a maybe on Steve Avila. So those are some huge news in terms of the offensive line, Gilbert.
Yeah, definitely. If you get Jonah Jackson back, that's big. But again, we don't know the injury report because it's Monday Night Football. We don't know about Rob Havenstein. I think he got hurt, right, Victor, in Seattle. So,
Yeah, he has a sprained ankle.
yeah, so it could still be kind of a patchwork offensive line, but we haven't really seen much of Jonah Jackson in a while. So that could definitely be a big boost here with, with Joe Noteboom. Can he just stay healthy for a couple games,
Yep.
especially if Havenstein's not ready to go? Maybe I don't know how much experience he has at right tackle. He's been playing more of left, but and also guard. So I don't know if he can help out there, but the more the better at that position or that unit there for the offensive line. But I do want to see Jonah Jackson, see what he does there for that run game. They brought him on for that reason. His tenacity, the way he finishes, the blocks there, and both the pass and the run. So that could maybe make the Rams a little. I guess I shouldn't say a better favorite because it's a pick 'em, but I would have definitely felt better if the offensive line was fully intact with Jonah Jackson. But it might not be. That might not be the case. So
Yeah, and McVay was asked with Rob Haven saying he already, like I said, they ruled him out for this game against the Dolphins, and he was asked who would take his place, and he is does that mean that it's Joe Noble automatically? And he said it's gonna be between him and McClendon, so that'll be something to kind
mm,
of keep an eye on as to who starts at right
yeah,
tackle.
I gotta look it up. I don't know if he's ever had a game at right tackle. Nope. Maybe he has, but all these injuries on this line. Yeah.
Right, you move guys around, and that's part of the reason they kept him around was his ability to be able to move around. Uh, the only other news in terms, we'll get to the trade, of course, but was the team terminated the contract of Jonah Jackson, and then they signed him to the practice squad. So it was they elevated him to be able to have him as a defensive tackle, and then of course, once you need to add some guys back from IR, you just send them to the practice squad, and that also is why they were able to activate Joe Noteboom. So, and it'll be interesting to see who they cut now, if and when they activate Jonah Jackson and Steve Avila. So that's something to kind of keep an eye on. And then Gilbert, of course, the big news that came out in the last 2 days was the Rams traded Tre'Davious White to the Ravens for a seventh round pick swap. There wasn't a lot of shock to this. We kind of knew this was happening. Sean McVay was also asked about it before the trade deadline on Monday on that Zoom call, and he made it known that they were working with him and his agent to do the best. And I thought the biggest thing that I got out of that from his response to it was the fact that he was really how much praise he gave him for being a professional, and he was one of those guys that when Tyler Johnson made the catch in overtime, that he was like right up there. He was the first guy up there that was really excited. So, yeah, I mean, just wanted to get your thoughts in terms of this trade.
Yeah, they weren't gonna get much for him. He was a great player, a few years ago, but just too many injuries, and in a way he probably rushed back. But even then, if he had a little more time to, ease into it, it catches up to you. I think he had a torn ACL, a torn Achilles,
Hmm.
and that's why even the Bills couldn't trade him last year because of the injury history. So they just pretty much flat out cut him and took the loss there on the money that they gave him on the contract. And that was the Rams sort of a gain because they only paid him $4 million for 1 year. But it also hurt the Rams on the field because he's not the same guy anymore. They got better when they benched him, but then again, the secondary got pretty bad again last week with Jackson Smith and Jigba. But They did get better without Tre'Davious White. So the one thing that stood out to me was, they pretty much all they got for him was they got a seventh round pick, and but they made that seventh round pick come a little earlier because they also gave a seventh round pick to the Ravens. So
Right,
with the rules in the NFL, you can't trade draft picks past 3 years, and it's a 2027 seventh round pick. And by the way, Les Snead really likes to do those 2026, 2020. He likes to look ahead for these trades here. Maybe there's something to it there, but so that was pretty much the only the latest, or I guess yeah, the most futuristic. I don't know what word to say.
right.
Trade scenario for a
Looking
draft pick.
ahead,
Looking
right,
ahead, it's a 2027 seventh round pick, and the only gain you got was like, cool, give us your 2026 seventh round pick. So it kind of just felt like give us something here, and I guess to
right.
Les Snead credit, he got something. And to the Ravens, good luck to them if they're going to play him because it's a risky thing to play him right now. But maybe they get it more for depth, just in case of injuries. They are also hurting a lot in the secondary, but just the way it worked out for the Rams here. We thought he's going to be maybe a positive addition, but we always the way we spoke here, Victor, was hesitation. Like, well, is he still the same guy? We
Yep.
don't know, and we found out very quickly that he's not.
Yeah, and I mean, cornerback and coming off of all those injuries. I mean, eventually, if you make the transition, you do so to safety. But for some guys, it's kind of hard to do that, and so I understand why the Rams did this. And they were in line there with both the agent and him in terms of what they wanted to do. So that was something positive, and we've seen this from the Rams where they like to keep things in house. And I was just really surprised with how they talked about it, and it was very open out there. Usually they keep these kind of things in house, and it was out there and they talked about it openly. So I guess they were both on the same page, which is kind of cool to see.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think they both knew it wasn't working out, and to Davis White's credit, he wants to have another opportunity. Imagine trying to get traded and then also being a pain in the ass behind the scenes. So he did the
Yeah.
right approach there.
Yeah. All right, Gilbert. And this is a perfect transition. We're gonna move over to Rams and Dolphins storylines. And the Rams, outside of the trade that they made for Tre'Davious White to trade him to the Ravens, they pretty much stayed still. They didn't do much. Was that the right thing to do, in your opinion?
That's a tough question. I don't know if it's the right thing, but the way I'll phrase it is that I'm not surprised and I'm not too concerned about it by being quiet at the deadline. One thing that and I kind of relate it to the Chargers because a lot of people, when the team starts becoming good, they get antsy. Go in, be aggressive. And I kept saying, well, I'm sure Jim Harbaugh and Joe Ortiz have a plan for the long term future, and they're not going to jeopardize that by getting risky and getting some bad money or an older player that could blow up in your face on the field. But the reason why I compare it to that is like Les Snead is not new, obviously, but when the old guys were leaving, he had a plan. He wasn't going to budge from it. And
Hmm.
when they got good last year, and all the rookie players are panning out and they're hitting and they're doing well, people screamed at Les Snead to make a move, but he never made a move because that's not part of the long term vision. If the roster is better than expected, that's great, but it's not going to ruin the plans. And he's been very committed to that. And they spent money in free agency because they didn't mess up the salary cap. They got Jonah Jackson. It hasn't worked out. That could be part of it too, Victor. Like they betted on some veterans this offseason. It just didn't work out. Tre'Davious
Hmm.
White, Darius Williams, Jonah Jackson's been hurt. They paid Kevin Dotson, and has he really been that good? I don't know. Not as good as last year, that's for sure. And it doesn't help
I
when
think part of it too, Gilbert, is that he's been hurt, but I'm not making
yeah.
an excuse for him.
So
Yeah.
it's injuries, and then the shuffling on the offensive line. It's a
Yeah.
little bit of everything. So maybe if you're less knee, you're probably saying, "Why the hell did I get so aggressive and bet on the veterans? Let the young guys play and see what
Mhm.
happens." It's a young man's game in the NFL. I'm not gonna lie to you. I honestly forgot about Cam Kitchens last week, and oh crap, he's getting a pick six and two interceptions. So give the young guys more opportunities, and that's kind of been the way Leslie has been doing it. On the flip side, I do criticize it a little bit because you see the 49ers are struggling. Do you really think the Cardinals are going to pull away from you? Maybe. You still got to play the Seahawks one more time. It's a very tight division. If you get a trade, you pull away a little bit. But what could you really do? I guess the best player that left yesterday was Marshawn Lattimore. Is he still the same player? No. Is he dealing with a bunch of injuries? Yes. And then it cost the Commanders a bunch of draft picks. So when you think about it, was it worth the risk? Was it worth the gamble? Go ahead and try winning the division with this roster. I think it's good enough to beat the Cardinals and the Seahawks and the 49ers. So that's why I'm not too mad about them, being quiet because if they get in and they have Stafford and McVay on their side, Super Bowl experience with a young roster, they might have a chance here. They also took the Lions to overtime. Let's not forget about that on week one. So that's probably the best team in the conference. So when you put all that together, winnable division, getting in with an experienced roster with a quarterback that's very good, you got a chance. So why risk it
Mhm.
by ruining the salary cap or getting burned by a veteran player?
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing too, Gilbert, is the fact that this is one of the youngest teams in the NFL right now, and the only thing that I was gonna say was maybe you want to add some veteran leadership, especially with Tre'Davious White leaving. You kind of want to add some veteran leadership on that defense. That would have been my only thing where I'm like, it could help them. It doesn't need to be someone where it's a player that is going to make a big impact because we've seen the Rams go out and they know when to go in on players like they did with Jalen Ramsey when they gave up the two first round picks and even a Von Miller. They knew when to go in, and so I think for that was my only thing with this, trade deadline. Outside of that, I thought they did the right thing to stay put. I mean, continue to develop your players. You're getting a lot of you're getting a lot out of your draft picks right now. You mentioned Cam Kitchens. We mentioned Jared Verse, Braden Fisk. So a lot of even undrafted guys like Jalen McCullough. You're getting guys out there, Omar Spades, and so continue that development, and you're gonna have a bunch of money, in the off season, and then that's when you go out and you kind of assess where you're at. You have all your draft picks. Maybe you go out and get a free agent, or you trade for somebody who becomes available during the off season, and so you want to have all those chips to be able to go all in. And it also, I think part of the thing too, Gilbert, that I thought about is that you have an older Matthew Stafford, whether you just don't know if he's going to be back next season. And so if it was a younger Stafford, I could see them going all in. Right now, it's just like we need to get that quarterback, that next quarterback, just in case Matthew Stafford decides to retire it after the season.
Yeah, and also part of it of being it's easier to be patient when you already know you have a Lombardi trophy hanging around in Woodland Hills, and you,
Hmm.
you got it done with Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay, and you went to the playoffs with this young group here. Why not do it again? So I don't think that urgency is really there. And then, like you mentioned, maybe this could be Stafford's last year. Maybe there's going to be a whole new era and with Rams football, and why one thing I give credit to Les Snead, he looked ahead with Aaron Donald was going to retire. Like that's
Hmm.
why that defensive front is so good. So, he's thinking about the future and also trying to balance the presence here. But you could look at it and say maybe the Rams are not good enough to hang with the Lions, or maybe you could look at it and say, well, they're always going to have a chance with Stafford and Sean McVay. So, both sides kind of tell you just keep going with what you have here. You never know. The Commanders are probably a little different because I tried comparing the Commanders to the Texans. When they noticed CJ Stroud was going to be good, what did they do? They went all in the
Hmm.
offseason, and they got Stephon Diggs. Where did that get them? Stephon Diggs is not going to be available anymore. They haven't even been a good offense. So you could maybe wait to be aggressive in the offseason or be aggressive now. And the Commanders said, we'll do it right now. So everybody has a different plan, a
Yep.
different scenario. And it might burn them with Marshawn Lattimore. So he hasn't been playing well. Maybe he'll be motivated to play well for a new team. So it's all risky, and that's why Les Snead gets paid a bunch of money to figure out what's worth it. And you already mentioned a couple of his trades that were worth it to win that Super Bowl. So it's a different group, a different era, a different way of thinking, and in a way, I respect that he's still thinking that way. and not just shifting based on like, okay, the winnable division in the NFC West is be aggressive. No, you have to have a plan, and you got to be committed and patient.
Yeah, and that was a great point too. I mean, they have the Lombardi, you don't have to be desperate. That's why with Washington, it's been 20 years, with Dan Snyder, and I can understand why, you finally get a really good quarterback, and so you want to go and show your fans like, hey, we're 6-2, or is it 7-2? I forget.
Yeah,
But
7-2.
yeah, 7-2. So yeah, I mean, and then getting back to the Rams here, Gilbert. Let's start off with the offense in terms of their headlines, right? I mean, their storylines right now, and you briefly touched on it when during news and notes there with the Rams getting both Jonah Jackson and Steve Avila back soon. How much better can this offense be now? Like, can I get it, you get back, but does it become more of a rushing offense, or do they just have more to work with now? More of it, like Sean McVay has more in his toolbox to be able to use here.
Yeah, it could only make you better. It could definitely help you out. And the biggest thing you could have on an offense is a good offensive line. And like, that's not sugarcoated. They haven't been very good. It's been a bunch of injuries. But that's the good thing about Sean McVay. He knows how to have the pre-snap motion. He knows how to create chaos. He knows how to be tricky around the line of scrimmage. And he doesn't have Jaden Daniels back there. He doesn't have Lamar Jackson. So you have to be creative with a pocket quarterback who's a little older, and you don't have the best offensive line. And that's where Sean McVay makes his money right there. Is just kind of creating that chaos and the pre-snap motion. So you don't have to do as much of that when you have a good offensive line. Just run the damn football and let Stafford drop back and operate and pick apart these defenses. But so from that standpoint, it makes life a little easier. But also maybe in a way, it keeps Sean McVay on his toes to be a little more creative and try new things here. So you want to be clicking and having a good rhythm for the second half of the season, and maybe that could happen with these offensive linemen coming back. We'll see what happens with Havenstein. Obviously, Jonah Jackson, Avila, those guys. If you get the top five guys on that front on that offensive line, I mean, you're definitely going to be at a much better place. We'll see if Puka Nacua can stay healthy. We didn't really see him last week. Remember about the injury that happened during practice? Then he got that punch there where he got thrown out. So if you can stay healthy with a healthy offensive line, like that's why maybe you don't make a move at the deadline. You feel good about your roster. You feel good about surprising the Lions or the Commanders or whoever's in the NFC playoffs. They already beat the Vikings too, so they know they could do it.
Yeah, and I think the reason this is huge, if they, once they get both of these guys and they play more than 2 games together, is one of the things that this offense is missing, Gilbert, that I checked. I think they're like last in offensive explosive plays. They're not make doing
Mm.
explosive plays, and part of it, of course, is the fact that you haven't had Puka Nakua and Cooper Cup, and they're not guys that are gonna, they're not yet guys where they're gonna catch the ball and get to the end zone. I think we're starting to see a little bit more now with Demarcus Robinson, where he's able to kind of stretch the field now as a third guy, and that's where it helps. And I think that's where it really is going to benefit this team to have those guys back, is the explosive plays. We saw that a lot last season. We haven't seen a lot of that. Of course, as I mentioned, guys have been hurt, and so this is where that's going to come into play. I believe having those two guys back is certainly going to help with the explosive plays.
Yeah, we saw it in Seattle for Demarcus Robinson, that one shot right there to win the game. So you got to have more of that. Demarcus Robinson's been doing it for the past couple of weeks too. So yeah, when you're healthy, it just opens up that field a little more. The running game gets a little easier, but they've been getting by because they have talent. They have good coaching. They have Kyron Williams who could extend plays and find the hole and make a 2 yard gain into a 10 yard gain. So but when you have a line, you don't have to do as much. So cool,
Yeah.
there that way. Cool, I'll go this way. Whatever it is. So yeah, that's definitely one way to look at it for like to be optimistic and glass half full mindset is getting that line together. But they've been playing well, and that's a credit to the coaching staff.
Yeah, I agree with that. Let me read this comment here from Alexander H. Says these last 2 games, the line has been doing very well protecting Stafford. I mean, I think they've only given up one sack, Gilbert.
Mm.
Uh, with the starters coming back, will they be a little rusty or some time to get acclimated again? What do you think, Gilbert?
Yeah, it could definitely take some time to get acclimated, but how many times have we seen in the NFL when the important center or the important tackle is back and everybody's like, yes, they're back. We feel better. Yeah, linemen, they know what they're doing. They know what they're
Mhm.
doing. They don't need much time to get back into it. And I think the Rams did a good job of putting players out there when they're ready to go.
Especially if you're gonna run the ball. Those guys are known, both of those guys are great on the run there. I think where you have to kind of keep an eye on is their pass blocking. But as you
Mm,
mentioned, I mean, they've been doing it for so long now that it should be like riding a bike for them. And then just kind of moving over to the other side defensively, we talked about how impressive that young defensive line. Um, what can we expect? What are you expecting here from this defense against the Dolphins? And as you mentioned, I mean, the Dolphins look like a completely different team with Tua back, and so you talked about how the Dolphins like to run the ball, but you also have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle on the outside. So,
yeah.
what are you expecting from this Rams defense against the Dolphins?
Well, part of the reason why ever since Tua came back, they still haven't been connecting deep. When was the last time we saw Tyreek Hill go down the field and do the peace sign? It's been a minute here because they can't protect. They don't have a good offensive line, so you need time to throw downfield to Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. So in a way, this offensive line is pushing or forcing Mike McDaniel to learn other tricks there to have quick game and have intermediate throws and do things around the line of scrimmage. So that's why you saw Devon Achan have a good game against the Buffalo Bills, and I always laugh because he has a giant helmet, and then he's a smaller guy, so
Yeah,
he's beating defenders and with that giant helmet there. But so the offensive line is not good, so they know they're facing a very good front with Jared Verse and Braden Fisk and Byron Young. They got 7 sacks last week, or the fearsome foursome there got 5 out of the 7 sacks there. So this investment on the defensive front is starting to pay off in a big way. I know we were off, or at least I was frustrated. Okay, you're getting the pressure, you're being consistent. Now, where's the sacks? Where's the game
yep.
changing plays? And now they're doing it. So, bring on the Dolphins who can't really protect and pass block there. So they're gonna run the football a lot. So just be aware, Devon Achan, and that's where the problems come in with the linebackers, right? If you can't keep up of a shifty guy, I want to say Raheem Mostert is healthy, but I haven't really heard much about him lately. They have another running back. Is it I
Jalen
forget
Wright.
Jalen Wright? So they're going to run the football because they have
Yeah.
to. They don't have a good offensive line, so uh, the Rams have to be ready for that. But this could also be a big day for the defensive front to eat.
Yeah, and I think as you talked about, I I think the big thing is going to be, stopping the run in this game. And one of the things that I do liked about Achin is the way he kind of glides, which is something that it's unusual to see from a running back. You don't see those guys anymore as much, but like especially at the angles that he takes when he once he gets the ball. There was a screen against the Bills where I saw him catch the ball and he angled his way to the end zone, and I was just like, wow, that was impressive. Just the way, instead of going in a straight line, he kind of angled himself and made it. I think that's also going to be a big thing for this defensive front is going to be, staying on your blocks there and making sure that you don't get out of sorts there. You rush the passer, you do so without giving up some of the edge runs, because this is where McVay kind of comes into play for me. Is he knows what Mike McDonald's gonna want to do, how he wants to run this offense. So I would be in the meetings with Chris Shula and just kind of going over things. Hey, like this, if you see this, he might be doing this in terms of the way they want to run things. So and I'm with you. I think this defense, if you're gonna continue to, especially what we've seen since the bye week, Gilbert, like this defense has really stepped up. You want to continue. I think the big the where this defense is really going to shine is if the linebackers continue to make progress with Omar Spates and Roseboom. If that continues, then I can see this defense eating, like you said.
Yeah, but it's kind of like a like on the other hand kind of story where like, yeah, they could definitely go off on this terrible offensive line, but they also have the weapons to beat you down the field. And we
Mhm.
know the weakness of this team is the weapons down the field. They can't defend the pass. Jackson Smith and Jigba went off on them for 180 yards last week. And
Yeah.
we know about Jawan Jennings, we know about Jameson Williams, we know about Marvin Harrison Jr. So if this could be a game where they have to get home. You have to make life miserable for Tua Tagovailoa. You have to force them into maybe some bad throws here because we know that this defense in the back end can't hold up. So maybe this might be the game we see Tyreek Hill flash the peace sign for the first time in a long time. Maybe Jalen Waddle. So that's a down part. Like you're facing a strength for the Rams defense, but you're also facing the big weakness for the Rams defense, and that's that
Yeah.
secondary and the linebackers having to deal with the running back. So it might be on the young guys up top to make sure they bring it home and they bring down Tua.
Yeah, and I mean, kind of flipping it now, Gilbert, like moving over to the Dolphins and their offense. We kind of mentioned it that they're a completely different team with Tua as they were without him. While he was out on IR, they only scored 28 points, and then they scored almost that many against the Bills. So that tells you, what how much better they are with Tua. But what kind of a challenge are they going to pose now? That Dolphins offense, as you've been talking about, just kind of adding to it with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, as well as those running backs.
Yeah, it's a lot to account for, and it could definitely be a game where Tyreek Hill gets right, and they've been doing the short game a little more, and maybe that's a good thing. I keep saying for the Dolphins because uh, this all gas no brakes approach hasn't really done much for them. Yeah, they've gone to the playoffs the last 2 years, but look at their record against winning teams. They can't find a way to beat those teams. They don't know how to adjust during games when the deep ball is not hitting. But now they're kind of getting around that. Maybe that's why they gave the Bills a good shot there last week. Tyler Bass needed to make a 61-yard field goal for them to beat them. So that was definitely all they could handle there against the Buffalo Bills. And you know, maybe this type of style is better for the Dolphins in the long run. Maybe they won't do anything. Well, I don't think they will do anything this year. They only have 2 wins this year, but for the future of the Dolphins, it could definitely be something. And maybe they show out in this Monday Night Football game to just warn everybody. Yeah, they're a little different. It might not happen this year, but it could happen next year because they're committed to these guys. They already paid Mike
Hmm.
McDaniel. They resigned him, the coach that is. They resigned Jalen Waddle. They resigned Tua. They resigned Tyreek Hill. So this offensive group is going to be together for a while. So might as well tinker with stuff, learn on the fly, get better for next year, and they're going to be playing freely. So maybe that could be dangerous here for the Rams.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it too. I think the biggest challenge is the explosive plays against this Rams defense. And as you mentioned earlier, I mean, it's been a problem all season long. They continue to give up the big play, as you said, with JSN where he went off. It's been a different player every game, and that's the biggest challenge I think is going to be for this Rams defense going up against that offense is, not only creating pressure, but also making sure that Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle don't beat you on explosive plays. And, you want to make sure that if you let them run the ball. I think if you keep them running the ball, but it's gonna be. Yeah, I just feel like this is gonna be a big challenge for this Rams defense, and I'm really excited to see how they respond because we knew what to expect from the Seahawks. We knew what to expect from the Vikings. I thought that was really impressive those last two games, and I think they, even though as you said, Miami only has 2 wins, they look completely different under Tua, and I think it's going to present a problem. I think if we're really realistically talking about what this game's going to come down to, it's going to be whether the Rams stop this offense, and that'll preserve a win for them.
Yeah, they're the best 2-win team in the NFL. That's what I say about my fantasy football team, the best 2-win team in the league.
And then just moving over to the defense for the Dolphins, Gilbert. During the offseason, they let Big Fangio go, and then they brought in Anthony Weaver to take over as a defensive coordinator. They had so far it's been a mixed bag of. it hasn't been, it's been good and bad, I guess. But why has the I guess my question to you is, why has the Dolphins defense struggled under Anthony Weaver?
Yeah, they weren't that bad early on in the season, but it could maybe be also having to carry the bad offense, and like I always mention, that's why I worry about teams that are one sided because the other unit gets frustrated or they get tired or
Mhm.
they do the bend don't break approach, and then eventually they just break, and it's hard to get back to it. So yeah, once Tua came back, the defense kinda went to crap there, but they were holding down the fort for a bit. That's why the Dolphins were in a bunch of, like, 9-6 games or 12-3, whatever the hell it is, and he was doing okay for the most part, but, they also have older players. Jalen Ramsey, I shouldn't say he got exposed, but he didn't do so well against Marvin Harrison Jr., a younger wide receiver, and that could be a revenge game right there for Jalen Ramsey coming back to
Mhm.
face the Rams, but yeah, older guys, they got was it or Jordan Poyer,
Mhm.
who might have cost the Dolphins that game with a couple bad penalties at the end. So it's a very old team, and then I don't even think I got to double check. I don't think Bradley Chubb has played at all, right? I think they're trying to get him
He's
back.
been hurt. So has what's the kid out of UCLA and then went to
Yeah,
Miami? I forget
Ja
his name.
Jalen Phillips got hurt
Jalen
early on.
Phillips.
He's been out, so, yeah, they don't have a lot of talent, and when the ones that they do are pretty old, and that's why part of me, they got Javon Holland, the safety,
Oh
and that's
yeah.
why part of me was like, maybe they should trade him because they don't have a lot of cap space, and maybe you should focus more on draft picks and paying rookie contracts instead of re-signing your own. And I get it, you could probably get a comp pick for Javon Holland when he walks in free agency. I would be surprised if they find money for him after they paid to Waddle and the rest of the guys there. They let go of Christian Wilkins, they let go of Robert Hunt. So they're really hurting there with the salary cap. So I thought they're gonna do something like that for the defense, but they didn't. They also paid Jalen Ramsey in the offseason. I was a little surprised about that.
Yeah, I was
I
really
know
shocked about that one.
he was good last year, but he wasn't prime Jalen Ramsey, and he got another contract. I'm like, shout out to his agent because he's not. That probably was his third different contract. I forget. So he's making money, but they're committed to him too, and it's just they're pretty old, and yeah, I don't know what they're gonna do about that for the future, but you definitely got to hit on your draft picks for 2025.
Yeah, and I watched most of that game between the Bills and the Dolphins, and they were getting pressure on Josh Allen. Josh Allen was doing Josh Allen things, as we know, but they were able to run the ball, and I think that's going to be a big emphasis for this Rams offense going up against this defense is running the ball and keeping Matthew Stafford clean. I think that's been one of the things that's really helped them, and you can beat this team, by throwing the ball, some short passes here and there, and running your offense. I think Sean McVay is going to find a way to um, be able to scheme up, a lot of these guys open. I think, but to me, as always, Gilbert, as we've been saying all season, it comes down to Kyron Williams. If he gets more than 20 carries in this game, I can see them being able to being able to get to this Dolphins defense. But I just think part of the reason they've struggled too is both injuries and then as well as it's as you said. I mean, it's hard to be the team that has to pick up the slack because your offense is without their quarterback, and so eventually that stuff takes its toll. And as you said too, um, we're in that part of the year where or the season where the defenses start to get tired, and that's when you can take advantage of it. And a lot of teams have been doing that lately to the Dolphins.
Yeah, I just looked at their I guess their opponents total. Somehow they gave up 31 points to the Tennessee Titans, but I remember that game. That wasn't a pretty game. They kept the Colts to 16 points. They kept the Patriots at 10 points. Big whoop. Who cares? So they're
Mhm.
definitely an up and down unit there. But yeah, when you get lit up by the Tennessee Titans, look in the mirror. It's not that good.
Yeah, and for some reason, it's like the last 2 seasons, they've just struggled against the Titans. They lost on I think it was
Yeah.
Monday Night
Hmm.
Football last year, and they lost this season again to the Titans. So, yeah, it just some teams just match up well against you, and the Titans seem to just be able. And I think part of it too, Gilbert, is the fact that the Titans play a physical type of football that give the Dolphins problems, and that's part of it. I think that's another key. The Rams are gonna be they're gonna have to be super physical against the Dolphins because once you punch them in the mouth, they seem to kind of not be able to punch back. So
Hmm.
the I guess that one thing that helps the Dolphins here is that it's an indoor game. So and they've been really good with that. So we'll
Yeah.
see what happens, Gilbert. But moving over, the Rams are 1 point favorites. As you mentioned earlier, the over under is 50. What's the right side of this game, Gilbert?
Yeah. I kind of wanted to maybe take the points on the Dolphins when it was like plus 2.5. Because I think it's going to be a close game and it could be a good game. And like I mentioned, I worry about the Rams secondary against the speedy guys, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and maybe Devon Achan takes advantage of the linebackers because he's so shifty and it's hard to tackle him, and we know they have a problem with that area. But when it's a pick 'em, I will definitely take the home team here. So,
Mm.
but yeah, but I'm telling you, I looked at it maybe a couple hours ago, so I think a lot of the money was going to Miami, where it came back down to the Rams. A pick 'em here.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that one, and I'm for sure. I think for tomorrow, I'll probably have this one as one of my best bets, and that's that over under. I think it's going to go over just with how
Wow,
well
okay,
these two teams
pretty high
have
though.
been scoring. Yeah, it's 50, but I can see this game being in the
Yeah.
high 20s. So
I can see it
yeah,
too. Yeah, you're right, especially with the Waddle and Tyreek Hill going up against the Rams, and like you mentioned, the Dolphins defense is not that good. So yeah, good point.
yeah, I and then they're gonna have an extra day of rest. That should also help both teams there be able to do what they want to do on offense. As much as I like what I've seen from the Rams defense, we know that they're exposed to giving up big explosive plays. So they're gonna get a couple of them for sure. I just still think the Rams should be, in terms of the 1 point favors. I think you go there with the home team. All right,
Hmm.
Gilbert, our Rams and Dolphins game prediction. I'll say this: we've both been picking the Rams to either win or lose, and it hasn't affected the team
Yeah,
in terms of they either win or they lose. So we haven't been a jinx, so that's good. But
I forget, did you take the Vikings or the Rams? 'Cause I think I took the
no,
Vikings
we both took the Rams to lose to the Vikings.
Okay,
We both took the Rams to beat the Seahawks. So
okay,
it
okay.
hasn't really when we both pick them, it doesn't really
And I'm
make
sure we
it.
both took the Rams against the Raiders.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah. So it hasn't, like I said, it hasn't affected the way we've been picking them. So I know it happens with other teams, but yeah, and I know people say you're a curse when you
yeah.
pick their team.
And there goes Angel, who was a big advocate for me being
Yeah.
being a curse. Uh,
But he's asking you, Gilberto, would you stream the Rams or the Miami defense in fantasy?
Oh, neither, Angel,
Yeah,
like, do yourself a favor and find a different team here.
yeah,
I don't wanna see the secondary against, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And then this Miami defense, like we mentioned, not just, but they allowed 31 points to the Tennessee Titans. So, you got Kyren Williams, Puka Nacua, and Cooper Kupp. Yeah, no thanks.
yeah. And part of it is Tua gets rid of the ball pretty fast. It's going to be hard to get sacks, and then
Oh, yeah.
we've seen also with the Rams, it's kind of hard to. They've only sacked. Stafford's only been sacked once because they've been running the ball a lot better. So uh, he said you might be a curse, but I'm always gonna support the Compass. Awesome, thank
Thank
you.
you, sir. That means a lot, even in a weird way, but yeah, thank you.
Yeah. All right. What's your
Yeah.
game prediction for this game, Gilbert?
Yeah, I did wanna take the Dolphins plus the points there, but and that's not even gonna be an option anymore, but I think it's gonna be a good game. It might be a little similar to last week in Seattle, maybe a little slow and then a shootout breaks out at the end. So
I
I'm
see
not
it more like the Vikings. Do you agree? Like the Vikings game where it's gonna be back and forth?
like, early on, because that one was,
Yes.
back and forth
Yes.
early on, and then at the end, it kinda slowed down a little
Yes.
bit. I thought the game was gonna for sure go over like 30 points for both sides. It didn't go that way. It was like 28 something, I forget. But you know what? This one, I say it does go over 30s. I say, I'll take the Rams here, maybe a late field goal, 33-30. That's a pretty high mark right there, but I think it's gonna be a close game, good Monday Night Football game, and give me the Rams to win at the end, 33-30. Definitely over right there with 63 points.
Oh yeah. I'm with you there. I'm going 30 to 28. Um, as I said, I really like the over in this game, and I just think it's going to be a high scoring game. I think both of these are both they like playing indoors. I know that the Dolphins play outside, but they have that speed, and I just think it's going to be one of those back and forth, and then the Rams win it on a field goal by Josh Carty late in the game. But I'm a little nervous about this game. I don't think it's going to be an easy game for
Mhm.
the Rams. It's as you said, the Dolphins are the best uh, two win team in the league. So yeah, it's going to be a challenge for sure.
Yeah, and it's an important game too because what if the 49ers beat the Buccaneers? They're coming off a bye week. And then also well, the Cardinals have a tough one actually, which well, I don't know how tough, but they're playing the New York Jets at
Yes.
home. I know the Cardinals are they are better than the Jets, but it could still maybe the Jets are feeling good about that game against the Texans. So you don't know how that one plays out. The Seahawks are in a bye week here, so when it's a tight race in the NFC West, all these games matter, and you're supposed to beat the Dolphins. So
Yeah.
you can't let that one get away before the schedule gets a little more hard.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just you have some winnable games. You can start looking ahead. I understand, you got a couple good games coming up, but you got to take care of this one. And it also helps, with some of the opponents you're gonna have. You still have to play the Eagles and the Bills at home, so take care of business. And I think that's why it's a big game for the Rams here, especially now that you've gotten some momentum. You're starting to feel yourself. Continue to do that and take care of business at home against the Dolphins. And then we got Willie Bowen says the LA Rams are awesome. They are awesome, especially once they're healthy. Gilbert, nothing but positivity from us.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, but Gilbert, that is it. That's all we have. It's a good preview. It's a little early. We're giving you our predictions. Hopefully, we don't get another injury like we got late in the week last week with Puka, and yeah, they are able to get both Jonah Jackson and Steve Avila back for the Monday night game. It's gonna really help them, and it'll take the offense to the next level.
yeah. We are a day early, but hey, it's more time to watch the episode here. If you didn't catch the
Hmm.
live show, let us know that you're watching the replay. Please comment. I know some people like to comment as they're watching the replay. I love that because then you see like 5 comments from the same person
Hmm.
because they're going with the live feed, or I guess the replay of the live feed. So definitely don't be shy. Also, keep liking the live feed because then more
Yes.
people get to see this here. Maybe a couple Dolphins fans jump in. Who knows? And Angels, right? Screw Jalen Waddle in fantasy. I never pick him. I don't know. He's just too much. He's too inconsistent.
Yeah.
Jalen Waddle
I
is
had
like,
him in a keeper league, and then I didn't keep this
yeah,
year. I was
he's a
like,
headache. He's a headache. You just never know when
yeah,
he's gonna go off. And but yeah, that's a good point by Angel. And yeah, we are early, but definitely watch. You got more time to watch and drop a comment like what Willie Bowen just did there. How long will Tyler Higbee be out? We haven't heard much. That probably tells me he's probably a month away, if that.
yeah. I was looking at the timetable for Hawkinson, because he had the same
Mm,
injury,
yeah,
and
but he's
it's
older
about a
too.
right. It's about a 2 month difference. So he just came back last week. As I said, I'm not a doctor, but I would assume that we won't see him till December at this point.
Yeah, or maybe just wait for the playoffs. And
Yeah,
he's a veteran player. Don't rush him back. And
yeah.
yeah, and then even like I know he does a lot of things for you, but like how much of a difference maker is he? So I say just keep him healthy and wait for the playoffs. But I know you want to get to the playoffs before that, so it's tough. But yeah, he's a good player. As he's also a veteran player, and as we saw with Tre'Davious White, when you rush it, it's not a good thing. So
Hmm.
let's maybe hold off on that one a bit. But yeah, it's time to get going here. Let us know if you're watching the replay. Don't be shy. And like the show here. Ignore what Angel is saying here. I am not cursing anybody's team. But yeah, check out all my work at si.com for some promos.
Yes,
Check out Gilberto's hour on Thursday night after Bengals versus the Ravens. A good game
that's
right
gonna be a
there.
good one.
Before that, it's going to be What's Up Boats or Fernando Ramirez and Danny Ramirez or Dan and Dago. I shouldn't give his real name out there. because he's a mysterious guy. But yeah, a lot to give and offer here at Compas on the Beat. But it's time to get going. On that note, ya nos vamos. Pues, shout out to you, Angel.